Okay. Let's see. I stopped at middle of my explaining the mathematics last week, so I'm going to go on and give you the other half of it today. And so last week what we did was we generated the fact that 4931 was the 658th prime number, and that 798 is the 658th composite, and 798 is the frequency of the initials in chapter 19. Okay, so as I said, this thing keeps generating itself, so it's self-generating, so we don't have to worry about it. And this generator here is an eternal generator. Okay, so here we go to 658, and we'll see that 658 is actually 2 times 7 times 47, and 2747 is the index of composite 3200. And chapter 3 has 200 verses. Okay, and minding you that chapter 3 is called Amramite. Okay, the Amramites. And chapter 19 is called Mary. And so Mary was an Amramite. Okay, and then you see the similarity between chapter 3 and chapter 19. Okay, so 27, as I said, 2747 is the index of composite 3200, and chapter 3 is called Amramites. The Amramites has 200 verses. Okay, we've known about this before. I'm just going to remind you so you can see. Okay, chapter 3, the index of composite 2747 is 2346. Okay, and that's the number of verses from the beginning of the Quran to the end of chapter 19. Is exactly 2,346 verses. Okay. So you see, so we generated with 658, which, by the way, the number of digits adds up to 19. 6 plus 5 is 11, plus 8 is 19. With that, we generated the number of initials, frequency of initials in chapter 19, and then we also did the number of verses in chapter 3 and the number of verses from 1 to the end of chapter 19, which is 2,346. So we go here and we find out that the index of composite 2346 is 1998. And Surah 19 has 98 verses, and so this was a private communication with Milan, which actually happened way back in 1998. Okay? So, but we didn't have the knowledge back then to connect all of these together in this fashion. We didn't know. We thought these are sort of separate cases. And as we see today, they are not separate cases. They are cases that are intertwined. Okay? So these numbers are somehow making a basis, okay, for basically the structure of the entire universe. And so this is the mathematics of the Quran. This is how Quran was designed. Okay. The 19th permutation of 2346 happens to be 6234, and that's the total number of the numbered verses in the Quran. Okay. Remember now, we start with this when we actually did this from the twin TPCs or twin prime companions, and we actually ended up generating the total number of verses in the Quran, including the unnumbered Bismillahs. And then at the end, we are generating the number of numbered verses in the Quran, which is 6234. One of them is 6346, and the other one is 6234. Okay? This is how important it is for us, as I said, to ask these questions in the light of the Quran. Okay? Because those questions, they come up all the time in our own minds. They come up all the time. But the question is that you're asking is the following: that did you want to be somebody who doesn't have freedom of choice? You have to ask that question. See what is happening in this world when people are being forbidden, prohibited by some governments not to be able to express their opinions. Revolution starts like that. Okay? Because people do not want to do that. This freedom that people have is granted by God to people. And so you have to ask that question. If we did not have different options of what to do and what not to do, would we be happier? And the answer is obviously not, because we are not happy. When we see that freedom is actually taken away from a group of people, that group of people actually withers and dies. They do not flourish. See, the freedom of choice is something that God has given us and granted to us, and we have to exercise in order to be content. So as I said, the evil that the envious practices, which is envy, and that was designed by God. Obviously, he has to avoid it, because God tells us that he does not advocate that. See that? He created Satan, but he says that do not follow him. He warns us about it. But he allowed him to mislead us. Okay? So all of these has to be within the confines of the Quran that we ask these questions. And we ask those questions within the confines of the Quran, and we feel better and we feel comfortable. Feel a lot more at ease. Okay. So this is what I didn't say last week, because obviously the length of the thing was becoming too long. So I saved it for this week. But you see that we did chapter 98. I'm sorry, chapter 19, which has 98 verses. We did chapter 3, which has 200 verses. We did the number of initials in chapter 19, different ways. We generated the total number of the verses in the Quran, which is 6346. We generate the number of verses that are numbered in the Quran, 6234. Okay. So again, and as I said, those numbers were not there, as I showed you last week. Those numbers that I'm talking about today were not there. So who collected it into this Quran? God did it. That's what God says. So if you look at any other Quran, those numbers that we have now in front of those verses in different colors were not there before. So this is the first time that those numbers are like that, and that sets another precedent for how to number verses in the Quran. Are they initialed or uninitialed and all kinds of stuff? Order of revelation, order of compilation. They were not there, but they are now there. They're part of the Quran. It's a fact. It's a Quranic fact, no matter how you look at it. Okay? So as I said, all of those things would have been completely irrelevant for those people, because they didn't know these things. We had to wait until 1961 for the exponent of the 19 Mersenne prime actually was discovered. Is 4253. So that would be completely irrelevant for people at the time of the Prophet or afterwards. Until now, it had to wait until now. We had to wait until the year 2000 to talk about Gaussian Mersenne primes. Because it would have been irrelevant before that. We can't talk about it. That the exponent of that is 353, and 353 just happens to be the number of harmings in chapter 42. What a coincidence, huh? So we had to wait. So the revelation of the Quran is stepwise. It has a time and a place, and we have to be patient. Okay? So I'm going to stop here and we'll